Ba-da-la-bub. Mic sync, mic sync, mic sync, bop, bop. Hello, you lovely bunch of sluts. It's me, Vince, also known as PleasantKenobi on the internet, and well, I've got a haircut, and I've even trimmed my beard to celebrate this momentous occasion. It's Wednesday. You know what time it is? In today's video, I'm going to talk about the Primaris Space Marines compared to their classic counterparts. I'm going to touch upon their integration into the existing lore, their play on the tabletop and in your army, and how this all ties into the concerns and frustrations of existing 40k fans and new players coming to it, all from the perspective of a newbie returning to the game after decades of being an outsider, looking in, face pressed against the metaphorical glass of the Games Workshop window of my heart. So, first things first is everyone's favourite bit, context. Space Marines, the Emperor's Children, the Angels of Death, Adeptus Astartes, superhuman but only barely human, killing machines, weaponized roid babies, unable to reproduce themselves, they're genetically engineered living weapons descended from the Emperor of Man's first foray into gene progeny. The Space Marines were built to help reunify mankind throughout the stars and mercilessly murder anyone who didn't fit into the Emperor's new vision. What a lovely cunt. By and large, Space Marines have been this way since the dawn of Warhammer 40k, and that means they've been this way for decades. Literal decades of walking, talking, double-R bastards. In the lore, they're literally these versatile, indoctrinated tank bastards who spit acid, can punch their fists through concrete, and could probably use their scrotum stretched out as a canoe. That just seems, I mean, that's not mentioned in the lore, but if I was the Emperor, that'd be one of the first things I'd be instilling into my new gene-specific produced children. But over time, the Emperor's favoured, the Emperor's chosen, his gene babies have become less and less impressive. I said in the previous video, it's hard to seem super, or superhuman, or super soldier, when more and more supers show up to be more super than you are super. Super. Whether that be the Golden Boys of the Adeptus Custodes, or the new hot shit, the Primaris Marines. To clarify, the Custodes are their own, faction, their own unique elite variant of the Marines that protect Terra. That's the Custodes, their own army. Primaris are new Marines that fit into old Marine armies. Just to clarify, you don't pick to play Primaris. You can play exclusively Primaris, but they fit in amongst all the other Marines in your army. I spoke previously about coming back to Warhammer and scouring eBay and looking for the things I knew I wanted. Devastator squads to blow up tanks. Jumpy boys to jump on boys. But a friend of mine, Teo, and thank you Teo, that combat patrol we played, 500 point Tyranid versus Space Marine, mwah, I love chewing up your gene stealers with bolt guns and onslaught cannons. That was fucking... Oh, that was an attempt at a wink. That's a really terrible wink. Let's try again. Oh, that was good. But Teo did say to me, don't pick old Marines. Get yourself Primaris, they're the shit. And in all fairness, he was completely right. The Primaris arrived into 40k at large at the launch of 8th edition. On June 17th, 2017, Dark Imperium box set landed with the new set. It was the starter kit for 8th edition, and it brought with it a new, souped-up, reimagined Space Marines. Taller, leaner, and statistically, mechanically, in the crunch, stronger. Their whole design aesthetic just felt a bit more modern, a bit more updated, and they looked generally pretty good. But these were not true updates in the normal sense that Games Workshop would apply to the game. They were not replacing old boys or old models. They were new additions to the Space Marine lineup, new blood, new tech, new lands, and new gear, looking to bring new ultra-violence to everyone and anything that doesn't quite look like them. So people were allowed to keep their old Marines. GW didn't just walk in, throw the middle fingers up, and set fire to everything that existed before. This wasn't the Warhammer Fantasy thing all over again. I'm so sorry, Warhammer Fantasy. I've only just kind of realised what happened to you. Call me. Space Marines, after all, are Games Workshop's Mickey Mouse. They are their Ronald McDonald. They are to GW what the Justice League are to DC Comics, just without a movie so bad it gave me chronic diarrhea. In the lore, the Primaris were created by Belisarius Cawl? Am I pronouncing that right? I think I am. Belisarius Cawl, one of the big boy tech priests of the Adeptus Mechanicus. I think he might be the big boy. He'd been toying with his new mixtape for about the same length of time you'd expect Dr. Dre to be working on an album, so approximately 10,000 years. This mixtape that I mentioned is the new Gene Soldier, the new improved Marine. Cawl was working on these at the request of the Ultramarine Primarch, Papa Smurf himself, Robert Gulliman. A quick aside, there's a thing where people call Gulliman Girly Man because the Ultramarines are kind of like the normie one that everyone jokes and mocks, that's fine. It's okay to hate on Tron players, it's okay to hate on Ultramarine players in like a jovial way. But using girly man as an insult, that is really juvenile, but not in like a funny like haha come kind of juvenile way. It's like there's nothing wrong with a man or a boy being girly. Like telling someone they can't be girly, they can't cry, they can't do anything that you associate, or toxic masculinity and patriarchy associated with being girly is kind of fucking stupid. So, take the piss out of Gulliman and his shitty blue smurfs. Cool. I'm going to avoid the whole girly man thing. That's just fucking stupid. And I want to address it here now before someone in the comment section is like, does he know they call him girly man? Yes, I do, and it's fucking shit. Gulliman was killed shortly after the Horus Heresy concluded, and it seems like Cawl was like, well, I better just keep working on these super soldiers until Boss comes back to life through the combination of alien spirit magic and ancient space tech, perhaps several thousand years in the future. Which is the longest piece of four-dimensional planning ahead nonsense I've ever heard. Props to you. Props to you. What's your name? Belisarius Cawl. That's some Batman level shit. Or, apparently he could have had his mind wiped, because in this universe, the powers that be, the Lords of Terror, the Emperor himself, will just mind wipe underlings that he finds, or they find useful, but keep them around without them knowing their secrets, because, well, you know, it's the grimdark future. What are you gonna do? So Cawl appears to have lived 10,000 years. His memories and experiences are stored in databanks. They're so expansive. These databanks have probably been raided, damaged, or wiped over the millennia. Without actually reading the novels to mine the actual references here, I'm just relying on wikis of Warhammer that make Cawl sound suitably epic in terms of scale of character. He's basically, to approximate, he's one of the greatest wizards in the universe. He just forgot some shit. So there's this canonical thing where like Cadia fell when Chaos like smashed the shit out of it, Cadia being a really important planet. There's a lot to go into there, but essentially during that whole saga, they brought back Gulliman. He was dead, and they got some armour and used some Eldar space magic, so they were working together to fight Chaos. They brought Gulliman back, and Gulliman was like, where's the Primaris? And this Admech dude was like, oh, I got the Primaris, they're right here, and he pulls them out of their pocket, and then he gives them to the Marines. Yeah, it's kind of weirdly complicated, but also a bit like, oh, there's new Marines, accept them. So the Primaris were brought back as reinforcements for existing Space Marine legions, and in the lore, a refresh and literal reinforcements for struggling Imperial forces. One of the more important fortress worlds, like I said, was Cadia. It was decimated by a rampaging Chaos campaign, and a little later, the Blood Angels' homeworld of Baal got proper fucking chewed up by some bugs. So the sweeping reinforcements and new tech brought by Gulliman and his Indomitus Crusade and the Primaris, well, it did feel timely and important within the canon, and I kind of like that. There were people who were like, you can't improve on what the Emperor did. He was like the most perfect, beautiful boy ever, because everyone's got a real big crush on the Emperor. But then there's the thing in canon, I found on one of the wikis, one of the high-up custodians just walked forward and went, no, it's the Emperor's will. And then everyone was like, okay, sure. Kind of explained away, because you would think that these really resolute, like religious zealots, essentially, these people who worship the God Emperor, would be a bit more pissed off that people were fucking with his plans. So yeah, it would make sense that a load of the legions might even say, or chapters should I say, would be like, no, we don't want these things, and maybe even a civil war would form. But apparently not, because one Custodes guy was like, don't worry, it was his will! So the Primaris and Marines not only reinvigorated the canon Imperial forces against the darkness of the dark future, but also the Marine model line. But of course, some people were a little peeved. Whilst the new extra height explained in canon has improved growth hormone production and physical strength through improvements to the gene seed inside the Marine, it now meant that fielding squads of OG Marines or OG heroes next to Primaris makes original Marines look fucking stupid. And in canon and in game, the original Marines are still meant to be the elite fighting force in this galaxy, but they just look like science fiction equivalents of, I don't know, fantasy dwarves at this point, and the sense of scale disparity is kind of frustrating. You can see it here. Look at Dante, an original Marine character, and then you've got Mephiston, who is another Blood Angel character, who got Primarisified by the process of Primarisifying. I don't even know how that works. But look at the size disparity. My Smash Captain's meant to be threatening, and look at how tiny he looks compared to Mephiston. In some ways, it's so dumb and so comical that I kind of love it. One of the other big complaints that comes from such a reinvigoration of the Marine lineup in terms of models and units, and what I'm talking about is not just new models replacing the old models, which you kind of want with sometimes because old models can look bad, they can age poorly. It's like new models with new units. Like the Marines have like at least twice the options of pretty much every other faction. So some races like the Eldar and the Tyranids are still waiting for their 20-year-old troop choices to get updated. I can see why Xenos players and Chaos players and just non-Imperial players, just non-Marine players in general, would find that frustrating. And this is something I'm going to talk about more in videos as we go on. I get that they're poster boys. I get the Marines sell better. But of course they're going to sell more if they're your set that you get in every starter kit. Like, if you get Marines in your starter kit, you're going to buy more fucking Marines. If you sold, like, Eldar and Orcs in your starter kit, people will buy more Eldar and Orcs. Especially if you had a great model lineup update and updated them with the new designs, because you're really fucking good at making really cool models, Games Workshop. Beyond that comes the mechanical improvements or power creep people have come to associate with new models or toys being introduced into games like this. To match their canonically stronger physiology, the Primaris Marines are simply started better than their tactical gnome counterparts. Your average tactical Marine compared to your average intercessor, which is the Primaris equivalent of a tactical Marine, which shows us that for additional 5 points in 8th edition, obviously that would be slightly different in 9th perhaps, you get an extra close combat attack and an extra wound. This means that when you're in melee combat, you're rolling to damage your opponent one more time. And compared to tactical Marines, they can take one more damage, one more average bullet, one more sword strike before dying. Now, newbies amongst you might be thinking, but Vince, this doesn't sound like much. But bear in mind, a tactical Marine only has one wound and one attack to start with. So for the extra 25% price increase, you get double the durability and double the close range attacks. And on top of all that, how about an extra 6 inches of range on their guns, and additional -1 to your opponent's saving rolls due to adding armour penetration, armour piercing to their rifles. Yep, that's right. Not only did Cawl rock up with some super pumped up 10 feet tall Marines that are bigger, faster and stronger, they have more spinach, their tech is better, their guns are better, which is just quite fucking bizarre. Like, surely, perhaps, okay, let's just say the rifles of the Primaris are so powerful that a normal Marine with a super strong body couldn't possibly hold and function those rifles too, right? But, like, why do the Adeptus Mechanicus, who Cawl is the leader of, he's actually a unit playable in the Adeptus Mechanicus, why don't they use any of this super fucking high-tech shit, right? Why? Well, a lot of it's balancing, which I'll come to now. So yeah, whilst you might take a cheaper squad to simply fill out a troop slot for a mission or build a specific army that needs multiple troop slots, tactical Marines are awful when compared to their intercessor stat lines and their guns too. And the thing is, there's already a cheap option. There's scouts. The scouts are the cheapest at like 55 points a squad of 5. So your tactical squad aren't even your cheap unit option, the scouts are. So scouts are your cheap units and intercessors are generally good troops. Oh, old squat Marines. Like I said, there's some balancing elements, like intercessors purposely do not have the ability to have utility options, where a tactical squad can take a heavy weapon or a specialist weapon, so las cannons, flamers, rocket launchers, or a plasma gun as you see here. The intercessors cannot do this. In addition to this, Primaris cannot crouch down and hunk into your typical traditional transports like rhinos and land raiders, instead giving us Primaris equivalents called repulsors or repulsor executioners, a new tech vehicle that is points-wise significantly more expensive than the cheaper or cheapest chips rhino options. Or even your standard kit Land Raider. So there is a balancing element there. You won't be able to put them in a vehicle and like shoot them up board in a fast-moving vehicle without paying the points to do so. However, there is a point that those vehicles that are now obviously very, very good and carry a lot of guns, like both the repulsors are basically gun platforms as well as transports compared to your Rhino, which isn't, they also cost real-world money. And that's another key issue people have had, right? People have had traditional Marine lists and had the same units for years. And now in the last couple of years, they've been forced, I'm going to say, if they want to be competitive, to buy new stuff. But ultimately, I don't see that as a bad thing, really. Like an update to units that are like 10 or 20 years old, especially when some of those things are like your core fucking Mickey Mouse of your franchise. The Blakes, for example, behind me, that are like 20 years old kit, there's going to be a Primaris version of those coming in the Indomitus box. And they are statted so much better with multi-wounds and like 4 times the attacks, which in a Blood Angels army where you want to get in and slash people up, close combat attacks are so important. Yeah, they are now obsolete. But ultimately, they've been around for God knows how fucking long. Maybe it is time they're obsolete. Sometimes GW can squat entire factions in the fantasy Age of Sigmar or this. I don't know if they've done it in Sigmar, but the term squat comes from the Space Dwarves, the squats that existed in canon as a race of mercenaries, and then they were like, pow, shot them, dead, out back of the shed, the back of the head, gone. And that saddens me, because I love dwarves in D&D, I love Gimli. God, I wish squats would come back. People claim that they revamp your books and your models ever so often to make you spend more money, but at least in this case you can still play with your old models. I personally found it a bit jarring to the nostalgia I wanted when I re-entered the hobby, but ultimately I'm now excited. Like, take the Redemptor Dreadnought for instance. I love me some bipedal battle tank action. Part of me kind of wants to get some Tau for that reason, and I will be collecting one of every Dreadnought I can, including the old squat Mark 4s and 5s and shit. But come on, look at that fucking Redemptor and tell me it isn't a slam dunk of graphic design. It feels so obviously Space Marine. It fits within the aesthetic of these old Marines that were designed in the 80s and the 90s, but updated and modernised, yet still boxy and on theme. This is a push fit. I'm looking to get one of the normal kits later this month to make a second Death Company variant, which I'll be posting about on Instagram. I fucking love the Redemptor, and honestly, I'm glad I came back when I did to pick up all this cool new Primaris shit. And that has to be stated, cool new Primaris shit. The last Old Marine release was, well, I don't even know. It's hard to find out from reading about this online. People don't really talk about it much. There is no, after a cursory Google, there is no schedules that are kept. And if you start trying to search for like what was the last non-Primaris Marine released, you get a lot of forums discussing, arguing, and generally being very salty about the Primaris update to the Marines. Old Marines are a thing of the past, and besides just cashing in on a bit of nostalgia and perhaps putting the occasional old unit or character in the old gear, I'd imagine that 95 to 99% of Marines from now on will be Primaris. And all the old characters from Dante through to, I can't name a character. Lysander, is he the guy from the Dark Angels? I don't know. Any of the other characters that aren't Primaris now will get the Primaris treatment like Mephiston did over time, probably to sell books and stuff in the coming cycle of codexes. I did a cursory price check, by the way. You can buy 5 old school Marine Devastators with varied heavy weapons to build a Devastator squad. You get 5 in a box, £32.50 from the RRP at GW's website. Or you can buy a box of Primaris Hellblasters. The closest equivalent, in a lot of senses, probably just better in terms of being able to get out the board and assault and stuff. £35, and that's for a box of 10 newer sculpt models with more wounds. Yeah, there's an argument for more desirable, more mass-produced, easy to make, so therefore cheaper when you come to like stuff that's being bought a lot of. They can make lots and lots of kits and bring the cost down. But with Hellblasters, what I really think we're seeing is the reality of a pricing strategy where Games Workshop will encourage new players just to buy more Primaris so they can slowly but surely stop making the old stuff. But with all that said, eBay still exists, and some people might want to play with the old models. Some people might want to go with the thing I said earlier, the theme thing, where they don't want Primaris, they don't trust them, they think it's fucking heresy. So why not build an old Marine arm if you want to? It won't be as competitive on the tabletop, and perhaps in time they'll point balance to make tactical Marine squads worth it compared to the Intercessor squads, because there'll be a big enough price gap in point wise. Who knows? But the old models are still playable for now. Problem is that's for now. They have started relegating things to legend status, where they get a final stat sheet and they will no longer be balanced, changed, or point adjusted, should I say, forevermore. And those units presumably won't be playable in ongoing tournament or competitive play. This tidies up some of the codices, I guess, and decluttering is good. But coming from Magic, a place where I believe rotation is very much a good way of the company milking money out of you and not good for the actual audience or player base, I hope they aren't too liberal with this dusting or legendizing of older models. What you see on screen right now is a chaplain on a bike, which was put into Legends last December. And now, part of 9th's rollout and the ongoing Primaris update and release, we see Primaris captain on a bike. That's a yikes for me, dog. How do you feel about Primaris? I want to know what you feel. I know some people who've started collecting Xenos races and Chaos races, whether it be Tau or Necrons or Tyranids or the Chaos themselves. You might not give too much of a shit, but like I talked about a little bit earlier, it can be frustrating to see a million different Space Marine releases, right? I'm not using this as a negative rant. I think the Primaris stuff looks fucking gorgeous. And like I said, I'm enjoying collecting, building, and painting it. I just do think they need to be a bit more careful about not giving any love to the other races and factions. As for old Marine stuff, I'll pick it up as nostalgia. You can still play it, that's great. But I have no problem with the update personally. So let me know in the comment section below. Until next time, be good to one another. Keep sending me your pictures on Instagram and on Twitter of your stuff you've bought. It'd be great for me to try and get a Warhammer sponsor, so keep sending it to show how influential I am as an influencer. But honestly, I want to see your painted fucking armies, your kits you're putting together. I fucking love it. It's just, it weirdly ticks a nostalgia itch that Magic never can anymore because I play so much Magic. It kind of has hidden that nostalgia I had for as a kid, where Warhammer hasn't got that way yet. Once we get to that point, I don't know, I guess I'll make an OnlyFans or just start streaming Minecraft. I don't fucking know.